Welcome to another edition of the Life of the Boys podcast. Today we're talking about the importance of service. We obviously have to talk about the elephant in the room right now, which is Afghanistan. This is kind of already. I got Michael and I got Josh here today. If I bring them back out, we can get started. And we're rolling. Great. So, Michael, didn't I just see you a few days ago? At your school.
Yes, you did.
What?
Yeah, I was leaving band camp.
Hold up, maybe. Well, let me turn this up. Did I?
Huh?
Didn't I just see you at your school a few days ago?
Yes, you did.
Okay, that was you I said hi to then. Because he waved back, and I was hoping there's a lot of Michaels at your school.
No, that was me. Sorry, I just had to leave. My mom was parked illegally, and uh, she.
The day you park illegally is the
I,
day
I
that
had to
every
get out
law
of town.
enforcement in Delaware. That's the day your mom decided to park illegally. Every law enforcement agency in the state of Delaware decided to show up.
Yeah, I mean, they said it was fine because of the circumstances for a little bit, but yeah, she wasn't really supposed to be parked there, so she was yelling at me to get in, or else I would have stopped.
Ah, speaking of illegal, how's Afghanistan doing right now?
Bad.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's
they're
so
getting taken
funny.
over by the Taliban.
Yeah, the force that we basically funded and created, and then once they start messing stuff up, we decide, you know what? Never mind, we're bored. Then we just leave the region.
I mean, every person who's run for president has said we're going to pull out Afghanistan, but only one person was stupid enough to do it. It's not that had the guts to do it; it was stupid enough to do it. When you become president, you realize you can't really leave Afghanistan because, your whole country's embedded in there, and once you leave, you left everybody high and dry.
Oh yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's a great way to screw over everybody else.
I really do think Biden is just, like
Keep talking about
hilariously bad.
this. All right. Oh,
That Josh Gill guy sure is a pain.
Josh, I don't understand you. Why do I still talk to you again?
That's so rude.
Why do I still talk to you, Josh? I don't understand this.
That is out of pocket.
I might see you twice a year, and I still manage to talk to you.
That's out of pocket.
You might need to rethink our friend choices out here.
Out of pocket.
How's your brother? Is he still in the Coast Guard Academy?
No, he got kicked out. Yeah, he's still in the academy.
I was wondering how you got kicked out. Did he decide to fly instead of swim? Do they do that around there?
What do you mean?
Do they fly at the Coast Guard Academy?
Actually, he did go for a helicopter ride pretty recently.
How did I know it'd be a helicopter?
What?
And how did I know it was going to be a
They
helicopter?
don't do planes.
Because they don't. Well, they do have planes, but it wouldn't be worth it to take off the planes.
You guys in National Honor Society yet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Both of us.
God. I guess we should finally get to the top. I haven't found a way to introduce it. I mean, importance of service in life in general. How can you word that?
Do you just mean military service or just
No, I mean in all forms. I mean, in any way you could serve your community, whether it be law enforcement, military, community service, not court ordered.
Yeah.
There's a lot of court ordered community service out there. I think Hunter.
Michael, have you started getting into any community service other than that one?
I've done some, not a lot, but how far away I live. I do clean up trash when I see it on the beach, but that's kind
Um,
of,
I don't feel
it
bad.
doesn't really.
And
I
up
don't. I
guy.
don't go to the beach. I mean, the beach is not for me. I don't like the beach that much. I just something
I
about
don't
me.
like the
I
beach.
live at one, so
I live by the
I
beach.
I just recently overcame my severe hatred of the sun though.
Josh, didn't you just get terrible sunburn?
I did a while ago, but I was like out in the sun a lot, and half the time I wasn't wearing sunscreen like the past 2 weeks, and somehow I didn't get
band
burnt to the point of pain.
Uh,
I did get a little red though.
I don't. So okay, unlike you guys who don't have as many community service, I think I have 70.
70, I probably have at least in total like 1 or 200, but it's not all recorded.
I mean, I have 70 that I know of, and that was all throughout sophomore year because I didn't have a summer break. I spent so much time at my school all summer that I'm not even in National Honor Society, and yet cool. Yeah, I still have 70 volunteer hours out of care. I'm the president of a humanitarian club. I am volunteering.
My volunteering is at my church. I'm on the broadcast team, which
Oh God.
my specific job is like operating cameras and stuff.
Oh.
And like they have some legit cameras too. Like it's pretty crazy.
You guys
The
still have
tripods that the cameras sit on are like $4,000 each alone. It's wild.
you guys still at the high school?
Yeah. We did open up another location in Milford though that we actually own. It's not being rented.
Oh.
It has like the logo on the building and everything.
Well, yeah, I know. I've been to church with you once, Josh, and you can see I have not gone back because I don't. It might have been a certain day that we had to be there like fairly early, I would say, and we had to leave.
Oh, I remember. I remember that.
7 o'clock to 1. I was there. I was when you say we go to church early, I expect at 8, 9 o'clock service. Early service.
I leave the house at like 5:30 to go to church now.
Yeah, you see that? That is not what I was expecting.
And I'm there until like 12. So I spent most of my day at church today.
And believe it or not, I had nothing to do the whole time because my first time there, Josh was working with children. Mrs. Gill and Mr. Gill, he was doing security, I think. I mean, they were all doing stuff. I was just roaming around the church for like a good 6 hours. I was roaming around the church. Nice.
Hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Also, apparently, I have taken over the Delaware Association of Student Council.
What do you mean?
Apparently, there's a state student council. A student council of the state of Delaware.
That's kind of dumb.
I didn't know it existed, most likely because it didn't exist because the pandemic pretty much gutted the program. And now, apparently, I have to rebuild it.
Why?
I'm like,
why is that your job?
I'm the president of the whole thing, so I guess that's my job. Yay!
How did you manage to become president?
Well, I didn't even run for the position. I just applied for just a small seat, just to be on there. And turns out, apparently, looked at my application set, and you know what? Let's pluck him from here and bring him up there. So
you're probably the only person who applied like at all.
Most likely. Hope not.
Most likely.
What is it?
Basically, I represent the state of Delaware of student councils across the country. So I have to MC events at my school. MC events. I have to go to events at Dover High. I have to do all kinds of stuff around the state because apparently that stuff exists. Well, yeah.
Sounds like a bad deal.
It does, because the only reason I actually got put into this program is because my math teacher who runs the program went to my advisor for our humanitarian club and said, "Who's your best member?" And they listed my name down. And next thing you know, Yay.
Yikes.
Uh, so cool. Uh, I still. I'm trying to. So how we introduce this topic? Do we just go into it, or do we start with backstory? Fine. Let me
Uh,
start with the question.
I think just going into it.
Okay, great. So I should stop winging these things. Fine. Michael, how do you serve your community?
Well, I pick up trash on the beach when I see it, especially like things that animals can get trapped in. Um, Try to help people when I can. Uh, yeah, occasionally I'll volunteer for something. It's kind of hard to do
Yeah,
when you can't drive by
a
yourself,
little
but
bit ago, me and Michael did a community service event where
Mike,
like we fed the homeless and stuff, so that was fun. We sat in a room for like an hour spreading or putting bagels in toasters and then delivering them. And that was our job.
that
uh,
it was.
yeah, actually, I was after school in January for MLK Day. My school wanted us to do our volunteer work up in Wilmington. And one thing, I like my body bullet holeless, you know, less of holes and bullets. Second, I was not going to go to Wilmington when I go to Dover High, but when I emailed those pictures to my principal, they didn't make it to the yearbook. There was a whole lot of capital all over it. But yeah, I mean, well, Joshua Gill, you said you serve. How do you serve your community?
I volunteer at my church for about like 5 hours every other Sunday. So that's roughly 2.5 hours per week. And then occasionally I'll attend a community service event with my mom and help out there.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Bless you, Michael. Uh, let's see. How do I serve my
Yeah.
community? Oh, wait a minute. All my hours of community service, I believe, were built up working for my school. I'm free labor. I feel like.
Well,
The
yeah,
thing,
that's what community service is.
oh no. I'm free labor to my school, not to a. Well, I've done. We did a lot. I mean, we did run our clothing closet, which was basically me and four other people. But of our 85 members, me and six people, six of us, including myself, we did win the state's volunteerism award. Then we also won the presidential one. Yay! It was signed by the smartest president of all time, uh,
Who's
Mr.
that?
Pullout. Mr. Pullout himself will sign the award. But let's see what I've done. I volunteer at food banks. I I ran clothing closets, which we so basically collected about 150 pounds of clothes that we donated across the state. Uh, hmm. Nothing else of importance. Fine. I mean, Mike, if you were drafted by the U.S. military, would you fake? Would you pull a Donald? Uh, Believe it or not, I don't believe he has bone spurs, but rich people end up having weird injuries that keep them out the military. I'm just saying. But he did go to military academy, which makes no sense to me how they didn't flag that. But yeah, he went to. I think. Yeah,
What
I
do you
think
mean by he went to military academy? Like
not as college. I think he went to like a military. I think he graduated from like a military high school. Not like a.
boarding school sort of thing?
It might have been
Or
like that. It looked like a private school that it was like a military.
it was probably just a private school that had the structure like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then would you end up having bone spurs, Mike, or would you go?
I wouldn't even get drafted. If there was a draft, I'd probably volunteer before I could get drafted because you can at least then you get to pick what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, with any what I let me. I mean, even if they did try to draft me, even if I did volunteer, I don't know if they would send me. I
Do
mean,
I'm
drafts
colorblind, so
do drafts
I'm
consider
colorblind.
medical exemptions?
huh?
Do drafts consider medical exemptions, or do they just get rid of those during a draft?
Oh no, that's how no drafts. They consider medical stuff. Some people have bone spurs. Some people didn't go because
Okay.
they didn't use their religious
Well, yeah,
name.
my asthma is definitely gonna disqualify me from any draft.
It would. Oh, your asthma would. I mean, I used to have asthma. I don't have it anymore, but oh gee, like I don't know my eyesight now. It would. They probably would send me immediately.
No, you'd still get in.
Yeah, they probably would send me.
Yeah, you
And
can be a pilot if you have correctable vision. It doesn't have to actually be like 2020, like the rumor says.
I mean, not everybody in the
There.
military is 2020. That's a lie. I mean,
What?
Joe obviously when he was in the military, he didn't have 2020. I mean, he obviously can't read common sense off of the Afghanistan briefing. I'm sorry, I'm ragging on Joe a lot right now, but this whole thing is kind of his fault.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like, and they just sent 1,000 troops back into Afghanistan to try and stabilize it because it took a matter of days for the Taliban to take over the capital of Afghanistan, and I will rag
I
on
just
them.
saw
What?
I just saw an article that was about how ISIS had taken control over drones and MRAPs that we had left behind.
I
Oh
mean,
my
So
god.
that's fun.
like, why?
What
Like,
do you
you
mean by
left behind our
drones? Like,
technology. We just. So, are you telling me we
are
legit just left? We didn't take
are we
anything with us.
talking are we talking like
A lot of times we do
reconnaissance
that.
drones, or are we talking like predator drones?
I, okay. So odds are that they didn't leave any munitions behind for enemy capture. So it was either recon drones or something like
Why would
predator
we
drone that
leave
was just
by
unarmed.
recon drones, dude? That's so dumb.
I mean,
But yeah,
apparently,
we tend to leave things.
yeah, apparently they're also now blaming Joe for making America look weaker than ever. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it is his fault. I mean, it's kind of his fault. I mean, I've given Joe a lot
I
of
mean,
slack lately. He kind of did have to change the whole presidential rhetoric of the president.
relative to like the time period with like technology and stuff, we kind of are weaker than we've ever been as far as military goes. Um, yeah, and like just sheer production power and stuff. Because like in World War II, we became the largest navy in that conflict within like a matter of months. It was actually ridiculous. And right now, I
That's because of the
doubt we
NIST.
could pull something like that, even though we already are like the largest navy. But
You can be large,
I think we could
I don't think we
because
could to that degree.
the thing with World War II is all of that came out of necessity. We were in a world war. We're in a the conflicts like Afghanistan's a landlocked country. We didn't need to produce warships for that. But I back in the day, what they did is they had people who didn't even make military supplies. They made them tool up and start making things like International Harvester started making guns. There was a sewing machine company that started making M1911s. So, like, it was a different situation. Now, now you just have your defense contractors making your things. During World War II, you had everybody making things for the war effort. It was so bad to the point they needed copper for the war, so they stopped making copper pennies. That's why you have steel pennies out there. So like
Yes.
it was a different situation. You had more of a need for actual like actual arms. It was because you were sending so many troops overseas. You were also fighting a superpower, not some guerrilla faction.
Well, I can
Could
definitely.
Japan have been considered a superpower?
I think they would have. Didn't they control most of the Southeast Pacific in the during the war?
They were. They also
They
had
were.
the world's largest ship.
They were just a superpower no one messed with because they were so much farther away. Crossing the Pacific Ocean wasn't as easy back then. So no one really messed with Japan until they decided to bomb Pearl Harbor, and then we kind of decided to wait a couple years before we bombed them right back. Except our bombs were bigger. Just saying.
Just a little bit bigger.
Just a little bit. They kind of bombed Pearl Harbor. We just kind of
they weren't huge or anything, but
they were just big enough to decimate two cities for a good 50 to 60 years.
They only dropped like one or two.
I mean, it only killed a few 100,000. I mean, they bombed Pearl Harbor. You don't bomb American soil, and then as soon as FDR dropped dead, Harry Truman just said, you know what? I can use this war power now, and I'm gonna drop these nukes. What you did? That's it. No. You know what? I don't enjoy politics as much anymore because Donald really brought a sense of intrigue. Like you never know what he was going to say. You never know who he was going to upset every more. Like Joe is taking so many questions from reporters that he can't answer, but and Donald was just saying, yeah, you know what? He made it very clear. I'm not going to answer your question. More like maybe I can't answer your question, so I'm not going to because he called me fake news and moved on. I mean, like the presidency isn't as fun anymore. I mean, it shouldn't be fun, but it's just not like it used to be. It's different.
Yeah. So off-topic question, sorta. Why did you choose service for the topic of the podcast? What did you have in mind?
3 weeks ago, when I had something in mind, I wish I had written it down. It was something I seen. And I think it stemmed when Joe was first deciding to pull out Afghanistan. And then I compare it to, the stuff I've been doing. And, compare it to the stuff. And I know, and I picked Josh because I know your brother is, Coast Guard Academy. I know Michael's a very passionate person when it comes to, I guess, service and forms. And I mean, I think it did stem from when Joe decided to pull out Afghanistan, and I kind of want to see all the clever zingers that would come out of Michael's mouth. All the things Michael could come up with about what is so wrong with him. I mean,
so the big problem with what he did that I take issue with in regards to Afghanistan, I can agree with people that say we shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah,
too many soldiers die and it was kind of a useless war. I mean, we had to get bin Laden, but we didn't have to stay really after that. There was no reason to. And then other than trying to defeat an enemy that's basically undefeatable. You can't defeat a movement and a mindset, and that's what it is. It's not the conventional military, it's a mindset that you're trying to defeat, and you can never do that. Yeah. It's one of the hardest tasks anybody can ever do. But my problem is that he decided to pull out and leave everybody who counted on us behind. We were there at that point, we were helping people, not just defending them from the Taliban, but when we're over there, our troops dig wells. And
I saw some statistic that
area.
But before U.S. involvement in the Middle East, like over the entire region, 0% of women were enrolled in schools, and I think there was an age range too, but I forget. But then compared to the modern day, 60% of women in the Middle East are enrolled in schools now, and there's just like other stuff like that most likely would never have happened if it wasn't for Western involvement in the Middle East. It's like there's a lot more things that happen beyond just like military action.
Also, I think there was another report I read that we haven't lost a soldier in a while, in the Middle East. And in most of and any of the soldiers we did lose in the recent are mostly defense contractors. And those people, who contract out there, they're the ones really dying. That's a lot more than our soldiers were.
Yeah,
And
they fight the risky battles.
I mean, I think Donald Trump's no nonsense policy on the whole ISIS thing. I mean, for a president that execute a lot of foreign power leaders, that he had them assassinated. He didn't start any wars or start any major wars or anything.
Yeah,
I
because
thought
they
we were
knew
gonna
if
be going to war for Iran for a short period of time, and I was kind of hoping we could take him out. But
I mean, Soleimani, he was taken out, and then the whole world thought Iran could possibly try and beat us in a war.
dude, whether
he
you like
deserved it.
Trump or
He
not,
needed to
one
die.
thing that is just a fact is that Trump has a massive, massive ego, and he also thinks very, very highly of the United States. So if somebody were to go to war with us while Trump was president, he would absolutely throw everything we have at them to the point of like it's overkill. If somebody went to war with us, their country, their infrastructure would not be very good afterwards.
Well, I think Donald Trump's ego is the size of Ronald Reagan's view of America. I love Ron. He's great. I think Ronald Reagan's my favorite president. And not because he's the best, but because of who he was. But he believed in a view of America that wasn't really existent in the 80s. He kind of, if something bad was happening, he would kind of, oh, we can make that better, but the whole crack thing. But Donald, I mean, he has the ego that Ronald had of a vision that would have decimated anybody who attempted to go to war. North Korea, what is it? 25 million dictators in there. We'll take them out in a hit. One nuke, they're done. I mean, Donald has a view that was unmatched. He has an ego that he would sacrifice a substantial amount of people's lives. No, that's not the right way to say it.
Yeah, Donald Trump, he wouldn't give a damn about the troops' lives. He would just throw numbers at them until the problem was solved.
I mean, America is not the one thing America doesn't have when it comes to soldiers when it comes to soldiers, they don't have strength in numbers. I mean, we have over only 2 million, I believe, soldiers we have, like including reserves and actives, maybe 2.1 million.
In wartime, that would spike a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we could enlist all the South, if we could South,
hold on, let me pull up the difference in like enlistments and stuff after 9/11 happened.
I mean, George Bush was great after 9/11, up until the whole economy thing. Man, I really loved the Bushes, but they always got the raw deal. The Bushes were always so great, but they always got the raw deal. I mean,
with George after 9/11.
After 9/11,
there
when
was
he made
there were a lot of people being really discriminated against because of the negative view on people of Middle Eastern origin, and that was a problem. And then we got into this war on terror that we haven't won, and frankly lost, and are losing. We're never going to win it.
By leaving, I feel like by leaving is an admission of defeat. I mean, if you stay, technically, we're still fighting this losing war that we lost.
We'd have to admit defeat eventually, because like Michael said, you're not fighting an army, you're fighting an idea.
I mean,
we've had several victories in there.
And if you
overall, we've had very, very few defeats, but the entire war is just inevitably a loss.
In my opinion, the tactics we use are not the wisest decision for the type of war we're fighting.
What do you mean?
We have too many people And we're fighting it as if it were a conventional war, and that's not what we should be doing.
How do we fight it unconventionally?
I think if we honestly, we have way too many bases in way too many places. If we, I think if we had a central area in like Afghanistan that we worked out of, and then had small teams go in places where there was a terrorist presence. I say small, I mean like 30, 40 people, like a standard like group in the army. But if you had them go confront the enemy in places where they were known, I think you'd probably do better because there's nothing that can be lost. Like, and you just have your one base well defended. But that's just me. I'm not a military strategist, but I think I think people could have come up with a better way to fight the war.
I mean, yeah, I'm like George Washington I'm like the George Washington of tacticians. But hold up, I'm gonna have to kick y'all out for a second. I'd appreciate it.
Yikes.
Because apparently they don't like me living in poverty. They want me to pay $14.99 to keep this going. Hold up. I feel like no one's taking China as seriously as we should.
We should have gone to war with them a long time ago.
A war that's also kind of almost unwinnable, depending on the way we do it. Because winning that war would mean what was the first thing the U.S. does if they mess with people's money?
If we went to war with China, our victory would mostly depend on like the stipulations, I guess, because an invasion would be very, very hard without.
You don't do it. That's not the first thing you do. You demoralize them by bombing them until there's basically nothing left, and then go in with ground forces to clean up.
I feel that the best thing for the U.S. would do, it would give countries like Vietnam, maybe Thailand, a boost in their economy, shut off China economically. If they can't export their crappy goods,
That's why China is such a threat. They are a military threat because they have such a large military, but
it's kind of not the best one. They can't really fight.
Nothing they have is particularly advanced.
Most of which you would desert and when given the opportunity.
The U.S. puts a good couple $100 billion, almost nearly $1 trillion goes into our military yearly. So we have no excuses.
A lot. Around 700 billion, and that's probably going to start going down pretty soon here.
I don't think we should just stop. We should start, being as good as everybody else. I think we should continue being better. If you need a country able to keep China in check if necessary, but we're not doing it because Joe's too busy sitting in America fake driving Ford trucks. Like, remember when he did the test drive of the Ford?
Yeah.
It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because
this sucker's quick.
I know about presidents a lot, and one thing I do know, because I'm not dumb, is presidents, as soon as you get inaugurated, you're no longer allowed to drive for the rest of your life on public roads or public area. He's not allowed to drive as president.
Wait, is that an actual law?
It's not. It's like part of the Secret Service protection. They cannot drive on public roads. Like George Bush, he can take his truck up on his ranch, but he can't leave the ranch in his own car. I believe
he's driving on like a airstrip. I believe.
Yeah, George. They have a ranch. They have a ranch down in Texas. So he could drive there, but you can't. Joe is not allowed to drive as president. So his fake driving, while I can clearly see your Secret Service agents' other steering wheel. And his pedals while he's turning the car. You're turning a car with non-working wheels because he started turning the wheel and nothing was turning. First thing, I don't have a problem with them wanting to switch to electric, but the thing about electric cars is I don't like them. First, I don't like the sounds they make. Second, I feel that if you make the more electric cars you make, what end up the battery? I remember saw an article something about their batteries. the way they're made, you're going to end up hurting. You're going to put so many more emissions out when you have to replace those batteries.
It's not the problem with emissions when replacing the batteries. The problem is that the batteries themselves are made of like lithium and other like cobalt and stuff and other rare earth metals that are very difficult to obtain, and the mining operations that are required to obtain the metals required are so
Very
bad
invasive.
because it's mostly in Africa and there's no ecological regulation for the mining of the materials.
They're just
But they
environmentally
are an
invasive.
I mean,
Yeah,
this
And
whole
then-
the whole like environmental push from the Congress right now, it's due. I mean, I believe Congress was at its best when there's one party holding one side and one holding another. I mean, it's in a right now. Congress does nothing because it's abuse of the filibuster. I feel that's what they abuse in Congress, the filibuster. 2/3 majority filibuster is I believe it's the savior of keeping Donald Trump from ever being convicted on any crime. I mean, that filibuster. If you can't get 67 senators,
Mr. President.
if you can't find 67 senators to
Even
convict
if they
him,
did have a full Congress, they couldn't really convict him anyways. At least I don't believe so, because I don't think he's actually committed a.
I don't think he committed a crime during the
exactly
cap. I
committed
don't
a
believe
crime.
he made it any better.
If he did,
I
it wasn't
think
during the Capitol.
he-
If he did, the Capitol
I think he's
situation,
committed
like
crimes. I don't think he's been caught for them.
yeah, he's overall he's
He's wealthy.
responsible for the situation at the Capitol, or at least the initial protest. He didn't really tell them to go inside. He
You
kinda
have
just
a
made it up
cult-like
on their
support
own.
He didn't
system.
discourage it.
He has like a cult-like support system for some
Yeah.
people, and that's not very good when you have a bunch of Southern people with a lot of pride for the presidents.
His following is very culty.
Was it with you, Josh? We rode past the redneck bar up in Pennsylvania.
I think so.
Yeah, we rode past this redneck bar with each different for the form of some kind of Nazi flag in all their different ways. But
Did they actually have Nazi flags? I
they
didn't
might have
see
had
that.
one. I don't know. I might have seen it somewhere. It might not. But
Yikes, bro.
let's just say the bar it's a bar that Josh would fit right in.
Bro, what does that mean? You calling me a Nazi? That's fucked
I'm not
up,
calling
man.
you a Nazi, Josh, but your demeanor, when you're straight faced, when you walk around with straight faced, you cannot be any more cold blooded in your look when you're walking around straight faced. Between your glasses and your haircut that neatly lays itself, it's something different. It's weird.
All right.
And you're the one that you don't even. It's something about you, Josh. No, yeah, I mean, I'm not calling you a redneck because I've known you for 8 years. But I'm just saying. Let's move on. What were we talking about? Yeah, I mean,
War.
oh no, we moved on from the war. We're talking about Congress, how ineffective they are because of the people representing it. I don't, you know what? I've come to hate a lot of states in this country, and most of them revolve around California and New York. And then also most of the time, Florida, whenever Ron DeSantis isn't cruelly destroying Biden and his whole presidency.
Yeah, the problem with it now is all of our. The problem with Congress is it's not as it was intended. We were supposed to be a government of the people, but to realistically become a senator or representative, you need so much wealth to campaign, and you need some sort of following to where you cannot. You are not really one of the average person. You are more of the upper class who has never experienced real life as an individual. But
I feel I feel like Joe Biden's legacy would be a lot better if he had never run for president. Just saying. Like being president automatically destroys your entire reputation by 50%.
Yeah, that's why I'm scared of Dwayne Johnson running for president because
He's like the best thing. Like there's something about Dwayne Johnson.
he'd be a great
He's not
president. Like I don't
unlikable.
even know what his politics are, but right
Who,
now,
who
like
wouldn't vote for
we've
him?
just had for the past our current president and the president before him. At this point, I don't even like care about the politics. I just want a president that's like
Not old
actually. No, I don't care about their age. I just want
or
one that
passionate.
like, cares. Yeah, that
Like
will
Joe
care
ran
about
out of
their country.
necessity. I feel like Joe ran because it was either him or Bernie.
Joe only won because the Democratic Party
would've been
knew that
better.
he had the best chance of beating Trump because he's the most moderate Democrat there is right now. So they just poured all their resources and stuff into him.
I mean, yeah.
And yeah, in my opinion, as far as like the American people go, we would have wanted Bernie more, or at least the average Democrat would have wanted Bernie more. But Joe is way more moderate, so everybody bandwagoned around him because they knew he had a better chance of winning.
Yeah, and then they made him play. I thought Joe wouldn't go there, but he flipped the race politics thing and put Kamala Harris on his ticket. Because other than that, what does Kamala Harris bring to him in his table? What do they have in common? Like, didn't Kamala decimate his whole life when he was as a senator when she was running, and then she lost miserably because she ran out of money, so she dropped out the campaign? I mean, what did she bring to the table that was anyway relevant to Joe's agenda? I mean,
I hate Kamala Harris so much.
And we can't even say it because then they're going to say we're against women or we're against blacks. And I can't, I mean, I already got one thing going for me, but I can't say, you can't say you hate her or you're against her as a woman. No, I'm against her because she's bad at her job. And she's from California.
I'm against her because she has made a career off of putting men in jail for having drugs. She's like any district attorney, to be honest, like most of their wins are going to be just low-level drug offenses. It's just not good. It's not what we need right now.
I wanted Tulsi Gabbard on the ticket with Joe.
Me too.
Like Tulsi,
I hope she would have become president. I wanted her to become president.
Like Tulsi and I have our differences, but you know, she is a person that our differences can be set aside, you know, because she's not actually the president. I wouldn't have had a problem with her being president, but the thing about her, she was younger than everybody else on the stage. Well, other than Pete, which is, you know, Pete was young himself, but Pete, there's something about him that's so unlikable. It's not the gay thing, but we are not homophobic here. We're not.
Oh, we aren't? Oops. I'm going to see myself out.
Honestly,
that was a joke.
I would accept it. I would have accepted her. I would have loved if she was president, but I also would have been fine if it was Bernie as president and her as VP. I think that would also have been fine. I don't think
Bernie
Joe. I don't like him.
I don't like Joe as president, and it's not because his best days are behind him. His time to be president his last time should being president should have been when he ran in 2008 and he lost.
I wouldn't mind Joe as president if he was actually like running things, but he's definitely not in control of his administration.
And you know, Melania Trump was famously, I don't understand. No one liked Melania. No one liked Melania Trump because she was just there. I don't even know what Jill Biden's doing right now, Dr. Jill, but I don't know what she's been doing. Yeah.
I wouldn't have liked Joe as president, even if he was running it, because his idea of politics is, especially certain things, is very much not good. Like, he'd ban assault weapons first chance he got. He'd hand out money like it was nothing. I guaranteed cause economic inflation.
Oh, inflation's up. Yeah. That was guaranteed. Yeah. Now, I do believe Donnie was cutting taxes a bit too low, but he was cutting them a tad bit too low.
I say the problem with taxes is the loopholes in tax law, not the number of them itself. The number itself is fine normally, as long as it's above 20%.
I think Don had 17. He had like 17 and a half. And it was like awfully low. Under 20 is not normal.
it also does nothing because all these people who don't pay a lot of money in taxes, all these corporations don't pay a lot because of the loopholes in the tax code, not the percentage that they pay normally. Because if they paid the percentage they should pay, then they'd be paying a fair share and it would be a reasonable amount of money. But there's so many loopholes with it where, they really don't pay anything at all. So
Like buying a jet, you could buy yourself a private jet and write it off for all your business expenses. For the end, you wrote it off on all your taxes, and you just bought a $30 million jet.
That's something I don't understand. Like, how is buying a vehicle a tax write-off in certain scenarios?
When you use it for business, I don't understand how it's a tax. No one else understand white collar crime. I believe these tax loopholes should slowly start becoming more of a crime.
I've got a friend who's the
they should just close
grandson of the Albanian mob boss in America, and like his family is looking to get him like a G-Wagon as a tax write-off. And I just don't.
You trying to get us killed, Josh?
No, it's fine.
Josh,
it's fine. That'll
Please stop talking.
Wait, is this someone you know online or
Yeah,
someone we know?
it's someone I know online. They live in like New York.
Okay.
Oh, thank God. Oh, so then they can do it up there then.
I was like, Josh.
Oh, bro, who the hell
I
knows who runs the Albanian mob? Like, yeah.
New York,
most
nobody
people know
knows who that
who's the
is.
head of the
New York is in
most people know
shambles
who the
right
head
now,
of the
so
mafia is.
yeah. Because Cuomo missed. I'm not even gonna do it. I'm not even gonna do it because Cuomo. Like, first of all, he was not good at his job even before he got called out.
Such a fun name.
Like it's not. Whoa. I mean, I don't excuse it as much as sometimes as prevalent as they are now, it's harder to believe. Like Joe, when they accuse Joe, like I don't think Joe goes for those ages. I think Joe sniffs and steps back. Like I don't see him as a dude that's capable of such. I don't know what's going on in Congress because Congress is just sick. I don't know what's going on. Matt Gaetz just looks guilty. He just looks so guilty.
All of our politicians are in some way, shape, or form bad people. Most of them. I think a lot of the ones you don't hear about. I think most of the ones you don't hear about, they're decent people and they honestly look to do the best for others. But most of the ones you hear about, like in mainstream media, are bad politicians, but also I don't know that they're good people, and I don't think they honestly want the best for people. And they're probably also guilty of crimes. It wouldn't surprise me if half
there's definitely a ridiculous amount of corruption in the government right now. Guaranteed.
Well, apparently, Cuomo's replacement, his lieutenant governor, because he resigned. Hold on, I gotta find her name first. I forgot. I know her name, but there's something about her story that is so funny because her whole legacy is that she only gotten prevalent in politics is because she was because the person before her was a nasty dude. Hold up. I gotta get her name. Oh, Kathy. I think her name is Kathy Hochul. If you realize she's lieutenant governor of New York, and because Cuomo couldn't stop grabbing, she's now going to be governor. But when she became a congresswoman, it was because the congressman before her also was getting prostitutes off of Craigslist. It's just
interesting.
Kind of ironic that her whole career is built off of dudes being trifling human beings. They really. Politics is a nasty game.
See, it's so hard for me to keep up with anything that's not like a major event right now because it's just so depressing.
I know, like between the border and actually Joe, we got to give him props. He actually made more people want the wall. He actually made 50% of Americans want the wall. I think Donald.
Yeah, the wall's a great idea.
Donald just didn't have a right way of presenting it to people.
It's not easy. I don't have an issue with it. It would honestly create a lot of problems. I think if we do create it harder for people to get in legally, I think we need it to need to make it easier for people to get here legally because the process is entirely too difficult for someone to become an American citizen. It by no means should be easy, but it shouldn't be as difficult.
Any natural born American, like, they'd have a lot of difficulty earning their citizenship if they were foreigner. It's way too hard.
I honestly think all three of us could not pass the citizenship test with a
Definitely
high enough
not.
number to become a citizen. The process is too difficult. Not to mention, people fleeing bad situations in other places aren't always granted asylum, so they have to come here by any means necessary. And then people coming here just to live their lives are normally not bad people. Like, they don't have bad intentions. They honestly want it better for themselves and their families, and
the
preventing
vast
them from
majority
doing
of
such is
illegal
wrong.
immigrants, the vast majority of illegal immigrants just came here for a better life and they couldn't come legally, so they just skipped over a desert or something. But the only reason that we do need border security is because, you know, there's the small amount that are trafficking children and guns and drugs up into the states, and you can't leave that unmonitored, or else it's gonna get higher and higher and higher.
Also, I believe we should build a wall with Canada. Canada is a danger to our American way. I don't like Canada. Never have.
Honestly,
liked
why would we need to build a wall when we could just nuke them a couple times and be way
Thank
cheaper?
you. Am I the only one that wants? Canada's already cold. Why can't we just leave them in a frozen asylum? Like, come on, a nuclear winter. Can we just leave Canada in a nuclear winter because with the
That's what I'm
absence of those
saying,
people?
man.
I hate Canada with a passion.
Canada sucks.
Like, between the way they sell their food, why is there peanut butter?
As a mock bill in Model UN or Model Congress.
Wait, what?
We suggested that as a mock bill in Model Congress.
I could write a bill
Canada?
about why we should get rid of Canada. Drop a few nukes.
Canada, stealing all their maple syrup and nuking everybody else.
That's another thing. Everybody else do hog all the maple syrup. They really do.
And first of all, Canadian bacon is not even all that. It's just ham. And, you know, I'm a pork. I'm a pig guy.
It's really not.
Just the term Canadian bacon is a sham. Like, that implies that there's Canadian pigs.
And also poutine.
That just doesn't make sense.
I don't even get what poutine is. Isn't it just cheese, gravy, and fries?
Pretty much, yes. But gravy and fries is a wonderful combination. And
why you add cheese to it? The cheese and the gravy should not be touching. They shouldn't touch.
Now I'm hungry. I'm gonna have to go downstairs and find something to eat.
Oh, okay.
I'm hungry as hell.
So he's okay. Well,
I'll wait.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's gonna take you a while. What were we talking about? Getting rid of Canada. Also, I want to write a mock bill why we should get rid of Switzerland.
Why would we want to get rid of Switzerland?
Switzerland is the worst.
No. Hold up for a sec. You are hitting the net. That was part of the same mock bill we wrote. I am not even kidding. It was nuke Canada and Switzerland specifically for...
Why Switzerland?
Their neutrality during wartime.
The maple syrup from Canada. We wanted to nuke Canada for the maple syrup. We wanted to nuke Switzerland for the watches, the gold, the chocolate, and the cheese.
Really? Not the neutrality during wartime? When they're in the middle of a war and they just said, we're not a part of that?
Yeah.
And plus, the Swiss, it's something about Switzerland that makes me even more upset. I mean, there's so much that's unlikable about Europe, but Switzerland really does stand out. And also, I don't really like the British too much. They are also, like, they rag on America so hard for no reason. When everybody in the country is getting stabbed.
I'm fine with the British people. I just don't like anybody from Portsmouth.
I really don't like anyone from Europe. I don't like Europe a lot.
I've met one person from Portsmouth, and they're my least favorite person on earth, and I haven't met anybody else. So until somebody from Portsmouth proves to me that they are worth a damn, yeah, I hate them all.
I
Oh
met
yeah.
a guy online from England. He was a nice guy. He was a good guy.
Oh yeah. I met a guy. I was on Omegle one time because I had no friends. So I was on Omegle and there was a dude from Britain and he said, "Oh, you're from America, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah. What about that police brutality?" I said, "What about the people getting stabbed on your streets nonstop? What about your queen who doesn't
Yikes.
use any of her power? What about your terrible
She doesn't
parliament?
have any power.
What about your prime minister with a terrible haircut? What about your terrible country that needs so much help from everybody else to stay afloat?" But
Boris Johnson is so funny.
I hate the British, and it's not anything against. It's more because I have a friend. Actually, you all know him, Bryce Fulgham.
Yeah.
We all know
You love
Bryce.
Bryce?
I know. We
Yeah, we
all
do.
know. I know Bryce. We were
Yeah.
VPA together years ago, but we were
What about
just talking on
Bryce?
Instagram a few days ago, and we were. He made some post, and he said I would commit like war crimes for some Chick-fil-A, and I was like, I would commit war crimes against Switzerland for some onion rings at Burger King. Switzerland deserves everything they get. Oh yeah. Also, the French are terrible because they're the most disgusting people on earth.
Bro, French as a language sounds so gross.
Exactly. And the thing about
sound way too much.
yeah. Also, Bryce said he also can't stand the Queen because she has all the power to disband Parliament, and she could not be stopped. But she won't do anything.
I'm pretty sure the Queen of England has the same power as well.
I know that's what I'm talking about. The Queen. She has so much power. She could go out and stab everybody, and she could not be charged because it would be Queen versus
all
the
I'm
Queen.
saying, if I was the king of a country and I had that ability, I'd totally use it.
Like, I'm sorry, I would use my power to its fullest ability. Why be king?
I'd use it and then just set up a better system. I would make a Twitter account and I would rule my country based on like online opinion polls. It'd be beautiful.
I
It
mean,
really would be quite the system. Like I'd write out some posts. I'd write out some posts like just should I nuke Switzerland right now? Lol. That exact spelling. No grammar, no commas, no sentence, no capitalization, just that. And then if they vote 50% yes, it's happening.
If I was king, I would do so much. I mean, first things first, why would I keep Canada as a part of my Commonwealth? I'm gonna let you fend for yourselves, you stupid Canadians. That's also one of the first things I do.
I think if, in all seriousness, like, I mean, if I were a king, I think I'd probably make my military steal the Eiffel Tower piece by piece. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be awesome.
But in all seriousness, I think our Constitution is probably the greatest political document as far as outlining government that's ever been written.
And so what? They don't follow it. So what? They don't follow it. It's still there.
That's the problem. I think it was written at a time where there are several problems with it, most of which have been addressed by amendments, but there's a couple of problems that cannot shoot. Where was I going? It's mostly laws that need to be created that in tandem with the Constitution, remaining constitutional.
Revoke the 20th Amendment. Let's revoke the 20th Amendment. Have y'all seen California? Maybe we should revoke the 20th Amendment.
Honestly,
hashtag getting canceled 101.
I really wish that one thing about like a state can't take a previous state's territory, because I would love to just disband California to have different states instead.
Like, imagine how good the world would be without Nancy Pelosi running Congress.
I think if you split California down the middle, north and south, I think you'd have the good stuff, and then in the north, and then everything else in the south.
Yeah,
it would work way better. People would be happier.
Like
Southern California is very, very liberal, and Northern is very, very conservative.
And first of all, without the North, they'd probably burn. The South would probably burn to death. Everybody would probably burn to death over there. I mean, you want to have wildfire. Like, you guys know a wildfire comes every year, but yet you still act surprised.
Texas is turning into Southern California very rapidly because everybody from California's cities is just moving into Texas.
You know how bad it is when Texas was a swing state in the United States presidential election.
Damn.
That's when you know things have gotten bad over there.
That's when you know the Republican candidate just fucking sucks.
I mean, yeah, did we really have really great options in 2020?
No, we didn't.
We had Sleepy Joe.
I think we could have dredged someone up.
Like,
yeah,
I think we did have we had good options that weren't running. We had really good options that weren't running.
I mean,
exactly. That's the problem. Is our politicians.
Like we all knew
our politicians.
I feel like it was in the slight back of my mind that Donald was not leaving the election, winning. But there was because Donald had no chance of losing they didn't even host a primary. I don't even think there was a real primary. No one could beat him. No one was going to beat him in the Republican primary. That wasn't even a question. So it was all down to the choice of the Democratic candidate.
And the Democratic Party screwed the best candidates. They gave Biden the nomination.
They attacked each other.
The Republican and Democratic parties, in my opinion. That whole two-party system isn't very good for us.
I think all parties are kind of, they're factions that are that are harmful to democracy. Who was it that said political parties would be the downfall of the United States?
George Washington.
It might have been George. I thought a philosopher also said something like that.
It was George.
Yeah.
George recommended not to do a two-party system. I don't think he spoke out against parties specifically, though.
Yeah, he was an independent president.
Well, everybody before that pretty much was, he was the first one, and he didn't really align with Federalists or Anti-Federalists at all. So I guess he was kind of the first and only independent president. But then,
Federalist a lot more.
Some of his economic policies did favor the wealthy.
But he didn't identify. He didn't identify with the Federalists, though.
I mean,
I don't identify with liberals, but if you ask me what I think about the gays, the answer is pretty obvious. I should not leave that open-ended. I support the gays. Thank you very much. Don't cancel it, please.
I think, honestly, we'd solve all our problems if we just treated everybody fairly and like you would be treated. I think everything.
Food ends racism. I'm sorry, it would. Food would end racism. It would. I'm sorry, but that's what I think it would. It would end racism. It would end all discrimination.
What would end it? Food?
If gays had a food that was great, why would we discriminate against it?
Oh my goodness, why isn't gay cuisine a thing?
People rag on Chinese food because they say it's
from a specific area.
What, Michael?
Because it's what? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, they rag on Chinese food because they say it's cat and dog. But that's not going to stop me from getting my orange chicken. It's great. They have something that keeps them from getting discriminated against. Japanese, they have sushi, and plus we have to respect them. We kind of did nuke the whole country.
I'm so hungry. I just ate too.
I think you'd solve a lot of your problems if you just stop violating civil liberties of everybody and not just picking and choosing which ones to follow and which ones you want to deprive certain people of. I think people are like, oh, this person shouldn't be allowed to do that and that person shouldn't be allowed to do this. But the problem is, if you violate somebody's liberties, you shouldn't expect to be treated kindly by those people. And if people just realize that, then and just let people be and let people practice their civil liberties, then I don't think we'd have problems.
Respectful
to one another.
This the whole what was it? What was the protest that happened all last? Oh yeah, the BLM. You can see what their message was. It's the organization. as a whole for me. Like, I don't believe that their message went as intended. Its original intention, because look what it's become.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even
I am
then,
not,
Black Lives Matter, the only reason they got any support was because they were an election tool. Like there hasn't been a news headline about Black Lives Matter in a while.
Since the election, it's not been relevant because it's gone. Once if you do something during election year, you're going to have clout. But then once it's gone, it's what's left. Like,
as I've gotten older too, like when I was younger and way more Republican, I really didn't like Black Lives Matter because I thought that violent protests were just not the way to go. And I still kind of stand by that now too. I think nonviolent protests are more effective. But honestly, the nonviolent stuff wasn't really being listened to. So if we're gonna go out and like, shoot a bitch up for political reasons and be terrorists, I support it.
I'm in the
terrorism never hurt anybody.
But it has, I agree.
Point,
like, to take it on a serious note.
Yeah. Take it on a serious note, because Josh is
I'm not even joking. Like, it sounds like a joke, but I'm not.
On a
the Second Amendment.
Serious note, I think.
What do you think?
Okay, so on a serious note, I think that at a certain point, your first attempt should always be nonviolent. You should always try to reason with people. But when people cannot be reasoned with, violence is the language certain people. It's the only language certain people understand, and occasionally you have to speak it so people understand. Like one case where violence was really the only option was back in, what was it, the late 1850s, early 1860s. John Brown went on to help cause slave rebellions, and
what a fucking legend.
And I was arguing with a guy about this recently, actually on a liberal gun owning subreddit. It was we were arguing about basic political philosophy, and I'm in the boat that certain rights are inalienable, like a lot of them, not just the ones that, like, Jefferson said were inalienable. I think like there are a lot more that aren't, and I think you are guaranteed those no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, and it's not something a government can give you or deprive you of.
What if you're like really, really, really ugly? Can you still be deprived of rights?
Like, what if you look like Josh? Does that warrant anything?
What if he just came out of the womb with below his face? You still get rights at that point?
But the point was that I was arguing with this guy about John Brown. I said that what he was doing was what John Brown was doing is he was making sure people were given their God-given rights, which at the time were established, just not recognized by all people. In the Declaration of Independence, you were given like life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which were considered inalienable rights, which I consider to be inalienable rights, and no matter who you are. And this person was insisting that since they were slaves, they weren't given any rights. But I think that's the wrong mindset. I think that they were given to them by God, but they were deprived by man. And all John Brown did was make sure that those people got their rights through just enforcing them. Because someone was arguing that, you have to deprive people's rights in order to secure your own, and that's kind of a problem.
That's kind of true.
Person's not violent.
That's kind of a true statement, because your rights end where others begin. It's basically the same principle.
We hate to see you when you're hungry. You need to get a Snickers.
Bruh.
Snickers leaves you satisfied.
I don't even have Snickers right now.
Yeah, you better not.
What does that mean?
Snickers are being canceled.
Why?
Because if you take off the S, say it.
I'll pass.
You're being canceled.
Alrighty.
This is racist.
Anyways, now that's over. Yeah, I just want to say one thing that I had on my mind is that, in my opinion, the Second Amendment, along with the wording in the rest of the Constitution, uh, kind of implies the right to use violence as a means of advancing the population's interests. Because,
I
like,
disagree.
obviously, the right. Why do you think that? Why do you disagree?
I think you might be right in what you're thinking, but I think your phrasing is wrong. I think you can't. I don't think using violence to the Second Amendment. I don't think the intention was to use violence to advance the population. I think it was because that can be seen in many ways by. It depends on who you're talking about as the population. Because if you said that word
I mean,
for word,
as
that
a
would just mean
majority of
who's
the
in.
population.
That's your problem. Is when factions and majority
not the
rule
majority,
leads
not the
to
majority.
tyranny.
Yeah, I guess interest should be swapped with welfare.
Okay, so even that, like, I can agree as long as it's used in a means where it's used to secure individuals' rights rather than just used to advance people. Because, yeah, you can use your arms. The majority, like, if we're completely honest, if the majority of people all had guns and wanted to increase their, and we wanted to help people's welfare, we'd go we'd go and probably overthrow the government. And, we distribute resources evenly, if we're being completely honest. But the problem is that's not how it would work out realistically. I don't think that's what it was for. I think the purpose was to defend against the tyrannical government whose
taking
rights were
money away from somebody in mass that they earned isn't necessarily following the idea of securing welfare, because you're securing one person's welfare, but you're also eliminating the welfare of another if you do that.
Exactly. That's what it would come down to.
And that's why a use of it to justify that action wouldn't be a use of it. It's just like why Congress going to use the Commerce Clause to do what they did at the one school where they took the kid's handgun away.
Well, that's a different problem. Like, that was because that was.
It's the same concept of just because it kind of might apply doesn't mean it does.
The intention of the Second Amendment, along with the wording of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, if you take those into account, was to secure people's liberties from those who try to remove them. And it was used for the defense of oneself from the violation of their rights by everybody. I don't think it was intended to be used as an offensive tool to make oneself better, or even society, unless it was for rights being secured. I think that's the whole point, was it to be used as a security measure for people who wanted to violate your rights, which is, like, on a basic level, like, it's people who are trying to deprive you of your property, like, right to life, liberty, and property. You can have it unless due process has determined that you're not allowed to, basically. I think that's what it was intended for. Or, like, maybe, like, life. If someone's trying to kill you, they're trying to violate your rights, and so you use your right to keep and bear arms to defend yours.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's used to advance oneself or one's society through violence. I think violence is sometimes a necessity when a government becomes, tyrannical, or becomes where it isn't benefiting the people anymore.
Michael, I think you need to go on the Joe Rogan podcast. I feel like he would love you. Between your love
Rogan
of carving,
smells so bad, bro.
I feel like he would, because look at his offices. I mean, I think it just feels like it would smell very masculine in there, like a combination of six bottles of Old Spice.
It'd be musky.
Old Spice and whiskey.
Yeah, it'd be musky.
It would 100% like just a terrible weed smell.
Like, I feel like he smokes weed with Snoop Dogg. Like, Joe Rogan is like the greatest He's like the weirdest. He's unexplainable.
He's an interesting individual. If do you want to further elaborate on that thing you were saying about violence being necessary to further society?
All I wanted to say with that is that the Second Amendment kind of implies the right, like I said, to use violence to secure the welfare of the population, which I guess when you say liberties, that does align more with what I meant by welfare.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I would agree with that statement. I think it definitely implies that the use of violence should be used when it's necessary in order to secure the rights of the people, from whether that's individuals, corporations, or people from the outside, the government. I think that very much could be stated, and I think that would, even if you look at the Declaration, like it was like the opening of the Declaration, it's like when a government becomes like tyrannical, basically, the people have the right to abolish it, and I think that was probably the main motivation for the right to bear arms. But I think it very much could also be said that it was for people, for individuals or corporations who also want to violate the rights of the people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Constitution is built to defend mostly against a tyrannical government such as what we're dealing with now. Not gonna lie, the government's kind of, they're kind of doing a lot right now. Without the government people.
The government's getting to the point where it's becoming.
They're going to use the right to bear arms.
Dude, have you guys do you remember the secure housing thing or whatever it was, where they made it impossible to evict somebody during COVID?
The moratorium, that's unconstitutional. How are you gonna?
Yeah, and they declared it unconstitutional, and it's just they just disregarded it. They're not enforcing it at all.
It's politics and a numbers game. I believe it's all a politics game. Think about it. You call me conspiracy theorist if you want, but Cuomo, he left without he just left. He didn't even put up a fight when he had the most democratic Congress in the entire country. Probably they were going to impeach him. If it doesn't look right for politics, they're going to get rid of you. I mean, just look at it. If a lot of you become homeless under a Democratic presidency, boom. You know what people are going to say? Maybe we should try out a Republican next time it comes. Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. There's a lot of unemployment. Oh, and there's a lot of people in poverty. And they think raising the minimum wage is the option. Oh, we increase people's income. No, you just hand them a bunch of money by forcing the business owners to give it to them. I don't believe a minimum wage should be a living wage. It's not meant to be.
What? Why not?
I don't believe I don't believe a minimum wage is meant to raise a family on or be a living wage like that. I don't believe
maybe not raise a family, but a minimum wage should be able to support two people.
One person with a minimum wage job.
I can definitely say that. I think a minimum wage job should be able to support an individual on their own, one person, and that's the low.
Well, the reason I say two people is just because of single mothers and stuff,
Yeah, but my thing about minimum wage is I feel
than two people.
The job, I feel because when you think about minimum wage, here's the thing, it's a whole spectrum. If there was an adult's minimum wage, but a lot of minimum wage jobs are taken up by children and a lot of working lower class adults. When you have children making $15 an hour, if you have children making that you have kids making that kind, because minimum wage jobs are usually given to a lot of teenagers who are looking for work. And I just, in the jobs that are paying minimum wage, they shouldn't be. People working in a little, in a factory. I don't think those are minimum wage. I think those are big jobs that deserve, maybe $20 an hour instead of 15. I just don't believe minimum wage should be a wage.
I think
It's the way they're
it
pushing
could
it.
also be pretty effective if they had different minimum wages depending on the industry.
Yeah, but
because they do have that for food service. There's like a much lower one because of tips. In certain food service jobs, anyways. But
a national minimum wage increase is going to be destructive to the American economy. You cannot expect Mississippi to pay people.
Well, here's the thing. It could be argued that the higher population and workforce would negate this argument, but I do just want to get it out there that, again, like in the 50s and 60s, the minimum wage, when you account for inflation, is much, 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 much lower now than it was back then. You could.
So I'd like to
earn a lot of money.
I'd like to go off of that. What he just said is, I don't think it should necessarily be raised to $15 an hour, but I think it hasn't really kept up with inflation, and that's a problem. I think if it kept up with
inflation, I think it would be around $15 an hour. Let me check.
I just don't think anyone.
I thought it was about 12.
I don't think anyone in Congress is doing any math on this.
No, I think if it kept up with inflation, I think that would be good. However, I think 15 is a little too much.
I think a federal or national increase. The thing about the United States, is it really a country? Because the states have their own governments, to prevent the federal government from having too much power. And then the federal law outweighs state law every time. So, does the states really have their own rights? And that's a weird thing because they don't know.
So I think the problem with the government in general now, both federal and state, is they're doing more than they're doing things that they have they shouldn't be. They're trying to control things that they have no means controlling, or no, they shouldn't be able to control things they do. Like, they're really meddling in people's business.
They're sticking their nose in places where it doesn't belong.
Yeah. The government's whole job is to protect the people. That's their one job. That's their one basic role, is to protect the people. Whether that's it can be from anything. Just if you're thinking about protection, that's the government's job. It's not necessarily to give people a leg up or make everything fair. It's really just to protect the people. And the government's becoming too complex for its own good. They're trying to do things that they shouldn't, especially the federal government. The federal government is meddling in things they very much have no business meddling in.
The federal. It's very difficult with how the government uses power. I was just listening to something downstairs. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the federal. The thing with this, federal law outweighs state law. I just don't believe there's some things the federal government should get. The states have rights, but I don't think some laws the states should have control over, as they can affect nationwide. It's hard to dispute.
Constitutionally, a state can't create a law that will have an impact on another state directly.
I think one thing would be good, that would solve a lot of problems, is if you establish what powers are reserved to the states and what are reserved to the federal government. I think that would very much benefit the government. Is because and really just if you establish and make it concrete that the federal government has no business doing this and the states have no business doing this, and then maybe remove some concurrent powers and move those to state or federal, because certain things the states and the federal government should have business to do, but certain things should definitely be reserved to the states, and some should be reserved to the federal government. And I think if you establish the difference between the two and which ones are specifically reserved to one another, like enumerated powers and reserved powers, I think you'd solve a lot of problems. Like education, the federal government has no business meddling in because that's a power reserved to the states. But they do. Like national standards for education are kind of unconstitutional, pretty blatantly.
They're also very stupid. No Child Left Behind is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Sorry, I have a little issue with No Child.
Yeah, there's problems.
I mean, No Child Left Behind is the direct product of 60% is passing. I mean, it's the thing with America now is that when things get bad. I mean, what's the government's only choice? Oh, just lower the standards. I mean, I think they're making the blood pressure standards even lower, like 120 over 80. It's like maybe 130 over 85 is now. Oh, that's good. That's normal for you. That's like pre-hypertension. But in the education center, 70 is too much for you. Too much. So we're gonna lower it to 60 for you. They're just gonna roll it back and make it easier. When you don't give anyone any responsibility. I mean, what do you think they're going to do? They're just not going to do anything. Ronald Reagan said.
Let me tell you, getting a 90% and then getting an A on the report card for it is a hell of a thing. It is a hell of a thing.
I think another big problem with the government is now, I think another problem that would be easily solved is if you more directly established what the bureaucracy has the power over. I think the executive branch has way too much power, and they don't have enough checks on it, especially in the bureaucracy, because I don't think there's anybody in the bureaucracy who's really an elected official, and that's kind of a problem. And I think our government's straying too far away from a government of the people, and it's becoming a government of the elite.
Well, the thing about the executive branch, its power is it is a lot of power. They can, any law they say, okay, Congress sends up a good bill. They're only supposed to veto laws they feel are unconstitutional. That's not how it works.
That's not true.
Aren't they only supposed to veto laws the
Supreme Court is.
They determine if it's unconstitutional.
The Supreme Court is supposed to veto laws that they find unconstitutional, but Congress,
I thought it was the
they're able to just veto anything they disagree with.
No.
Supreme Court is just the best. They are the best.
The executive can really. There is no established rules on veto power. It's really veto whatever you don't like, whatever you think's wrong. There's really no limit to why you should do it. The Supreme Court it's not a veto. It's an
analysis.
It's judicial review on the constitutionality of law, and if they determine that it's unconstitutional, it is labeled as such, and then is declared null and void. That's the difference.
That's why Supreme Court's the best. Congress, they can't get anything done because I hate to say that I want the filibuster to go, but I kind of want it to stay, but it's mostly a horrible thing. The 2/3 majority thing needs to go. It does. It's not good for society, even though it's going to keep a lot of progressives in check because they can't do anything stupid. But the 2/3 majority thing, it's really going to be detrimental to let them do anything right. They can't do anything because all they do is fight and bicker over this filibuster that is not going to allow anything to get done. They just passed this infrastructure bill that barely made it through. And apparently they're going to start taxing per mile you drive. I don't know. It's something about the bill to pay for it, Joe's got to find money.
Most of our current politicians. I think it'd be most beneficial if most of our current politicians just retired, and they most of them. Again, the problem with the government is it's no longer a government of the people; it's a government of the elite, and that's a problem.
And term limits.
The government of the people, by the people, for the people, not one of the elites and those who the elites like, such as in the bureaucracy. You know how bureaucratic jobs in the bureaucracy are given to people whom the higher ups like, and that's how that works. There's very few checks on the bureaucracy, and that's a problem. The executive branch goes relatively unchecked.
Yeah, because who are you going to check? Your boss, which is the president.
Yeah, and then Congress, Congress, it's, again, I was saying before, to become a politician, it requires a lot of money. It's not something that can be done easily without a lot of money, and that's a problem. Like,
Donald Trump was a millionaire.
Can't be government of the people, by the people, for the people, if not everybody can do it.
Like, if Donald Trump was not if he was not a billionaire, but he still has all his popularity he had before, he wouldn't have been president. They were sick of Obama. Well, they weren't sick of Obama as much as they were ready for something new. When you spend 8 years with a president, it's almost time for something new. That's why when George Bush won in 1988, it was like, oh, we're just going to get an extension of the Reagan presidency. Like, they're ready for something new after 8 years. I mean, you had 8 years of Obama. I hate to say, but Obama's going to be remembered for a lot more than he should. It's a historical thing. That's all people care about. The historical thing he did when he became president. But not to mention his presidency was average. He wasn't that bad president. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't really that great.
Wasn't outstanding.
I mean, he was. I mean, like George Herbert Walker Bush, outstanding president. It was just the taxes thing that really took his whole presidency down. Jimmy Carter, Jimmy Carter was actually an egotistical narcissist. But whatever.
Jimmy Carter wasn't a very good president.
He wasn't a very good person. That's what the Secret Service said about him. He wasn't a very good person. He was a hypocrite. He was an egotist.
I've heard the opposite. I've heard he was bad. He was
a great person,
very nice individual. But
they say he was very
that he was not a good politician.
Oh yeah. Well, he was Georgia governor. I mean, that's policy experience, but he wasn't a politician. And politics don't really change until you hit Washington. So they were ready for something. You were dealing with Obama, a cool, mild-mannered man who spoke genuinely. He didn't. He sounded like a politician. And then you get Donald Trump, outspoken, he mesmerized the crowd when he seen one. He made one side hate him, and his hate made his supporters love him more. And he won the presidency against Hillary Clinton, who was very unlikable. I don't understand I don't like Hillary Clinton. First of all, people regard her as one of the most unlikable first ladies ever by the Secret Service. They hated her. They actually said working with Hillary Clinton was a punishment. They said working with her was a punishment because she was the cruelest person you could be with. And they said Hillary Clinton was cruel to be around. And also, I mean, where are
you hearing this? Because I'd love to read up on that.
It's called it's a Secret Service documentary I watch. It's like The President's Men or something, maybe. You can find it on demand. I have DirecTV, so you can find it. It's like on Tales of the Secret Service, or you can find it online. It's really not that bad. It's an hour long and details like how the Secret Service, for members of the Secret Service, like remember their time. Like Ronald Reagan.
I don't interrupt, but I do have to go pretty soon.
I know, me too. I mean, I'm just going to leave off this one little story that Ronald Reagan once brought his pistol onto the helicopter, and told the Secret Service. They said, "Why do you need that?" He said, "I'm going to help you guys out." So, this little story. You could go watch the documentary if you want. I guess we can wrap this up. Did anyone want to leave anyone off with a quote from anyone? Right? Great. Nobody.
Let me think for a sec. There's a couple of good ones.
Josh, got one?
Those who prefer those who prefer security over liberty deserve neither. Ben Franklin. That's a good one.
All right. Well, let's see. Extremism and offensive liberty is no vice. I'm not going to do it one time. I'm not gonna. I'm not. Wait, no, and that's the very Goldwater quote. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna make. Oh, okay. Let me do this. George Wallace quote. Uh, what is segregation now? Segregation later? No, no, no. We're not gonna do that.
Yikes.
Fine. Peace is not the essence of conflict; it's the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. Ronald Reagan. Josh, you got one for us?
I have another one.
Nothing comes to my head.
You're uncultured swine.
I forgot. Oh, I had another good one. Oh, jeez. Yeah, but that one's pretty good. Ben Franklin. That one's good.
All right, Michael, you are excused. I thank you for showing up. Josh, you can leave too. You uncultured swine.
All right, see you around.
Yeah, I guess I'll see you next year. We've reached our quota for this year.
You never have too much Gil. I'll be back.
Yeah, because your dad is so much better than you are.
Bro, out of pocket.
All right. Well, this is our wrap up the edition of the Life of the Boys podcast about the importance of patrons. As usual, we always go off topic, but I always enjoy talking with my friends. So we're going to end this up for today, and thank you all for watching. And you probably didn't watch the whole thing. I wouldn't. It's like 2 hours. So I'm going to let you all go. Thank you and goodbye.